On July 30, 2016, an event shook the residents of the Colonia Naples neighborhood, an upper-middle-class neighborhood located in the capital of Mexico. It was around 6 and when residents woke up to the sound of a loud bang coming from the street. When they looked out the windows of their houses to see what was happening, they saw the naked body of a woman lying in the middle of the street. These people immediately called the police to report what had happened. No one had any idea how this woman got there and why she was naked. Once they arrived at the scene, authorities couldn't do much, as the woman passed away shortly before they arrived. Later, authorities discovered the identity of the victim. She was Stephanie Magón Ramirez. But who was she? Hello and welcome back to the Unheard-of channel. In this video, I will talk about one of the most mysterious cases in all of Mexico. Stephanie Magón Ramirez was 23 years old and was born in the city of Cali. Her family and closest friends called her Nan, an affectionate nickname they gave her. In Colombia, Stephanie lived in a humble neighborhood in the city of Cali, along with her 4-year-old son and her husband, a man called Anthony Marin, who is a well-known local DJ. She was described as being polite, who liked making friends and passionate about animals and her family. Stephanie had moved from Colombia to Mexico as she intended to build a good professional career. According to sources, only Stephanie went to Mexico while her son and husband stayed in Colombia. In Colombia, Stephanie studied social communication and dreamed of one day becoming a TV presenter. According to her friends, Stephanie went to Mexico with the aim of completing her studies at the National Telecommunications Institute of Mexico, which trains future radio and TV presenters. As she had already started her studies in this area in Colombia, as soon as she received the proposal to travel to Mexico, she decided to stop enrolling in her course and continue her studies in Mexico. Magali, Stephanie's mother, was very insecure when she received the news that her daughter was going to Mexico alone. The woman had a bad feeling and told Stephanie that crime there is very high and begged her daughter not to go. But Stephanie was excited and determined to go, as according to her, the offer was very good. In May 2016, Stephanie arrived in Mexico City with a signed contract with a modeling agency called New Icon Models. As part of the contract, the agency would provide financial assistance to Stephanie to move and live in Mexico City for a period of at least 6 months. This help was actually a loan to cover the cost of her visa, plane ticket, and renting an apartment, and when Stephanie was better off, she would have to pay them in installments. Stephanie's job consisted of being a model for commercials and catalogs. Despite having modeled before, in this work she would only be a photo model for different brands. In Mexico City, Stephanie initially shared an apartment with a colleague, but about 2 months later, she decided to move in alone in a small apartment located on Miami Street, in the Colonia Naples neighborhood. This apartment is on the top floor of a 5-story building, and according to sources, the amount she paid in rent was 5,000 Mexican pesos, around $290. Representatives in Colombia of the modeling agency, with which Stephanie had a contract confirmed that she owed them a debt, but said that despite this, she was very happy with her new job in Mexico City. At first, the police theorized that Stephanie had fallen or even thrown herself from the 5th floor of her building, which was where her apartment was. However, evidence that emerged during the investigations showed that there was much more behind this. During the autopsy that was performed on Stephanie's body, the medical examiner found that she had suffered a head injury. Fractures were also found in his jaw and ribs, and clear signs of violent aggression. In fact, some of her teeth were missing, and according to the police, these missing teeth were not found where her body was. The first toxicology test performed on Stephanie indicated that she had not used alcohol or drugs. Later, authorities requested a more advanced test to see if she had consumed any type of synthetic drug, but the results of that test, for some reason, were not released to the public. About 3 days after the event, on August 2, 2016, the then president of the Superior Court of Justice of the Federal District, Edgar Elias Azar, said in a press conference that Stephanie had fractures and bruises that indicated that the cause of her death was due to violent attacks he suffered. From then on, the case began to be covered in the media as a planned crime. However, a few days later, the Mexico City Attorney General's office gave a new version of the facts. In this new version, they said that Stephanie had taken her own life, as there was supposedly no evidence that she had suffered any type of violence, and thus concluded that she had fallen from the roof of the building, either accidentally or on her own. One of the pieces of evidence that authorities had to corroborate this theory was that they had found traces of synthetic drugs in Stephanie's blood. With that, they said that at the time of her fall, she was under the influence of these substances. Furthermore, according to some witnesses, on July 29th, the day before the incident, Stephanie went to a nightclub called Normandy Forum. In that nightclub, according to witnesses, she allegedly drank alcohol and consumed drugs. In fact, one of these witnesses said that he saw Stephanie very ill inside one of the nightclub's bathrooms, and that she was even hallucinating and taking off her clothes. Stephanie's family stated that she did not tend to consume alcohol in excess, much less use drugs. For them, the woman was drugged by other people inside the nightclub. After these testimonies from people saying that Stephanie had consumed drugs inside the nightclub, the authorities decided to close the establishment so that an operation could be carried out there with the intention of finding out if there were drugs there. During the investigation, the police received information from witnesses that Stephanie, in addition to being a model, also worked as a prostitute. The victim's family also disputed this information and said that Stephanie had a signed contract as an advertising model with an agency and did not need to prostitute herself to survive. The Mexican authorities, in addition to not releasing much information regarding the investigation into this case, made a point of closing it quickly, and the official version of the events was that Stephanie had taken her own life. However, many were not convinced. And one of the theories that has been widely discussed is that Stephanie was a victim of a human trafficking network through the modeling agency she was hired by, a network that would have very influential people behind the entire scheme. The agency with which Stephanie had a contract is located in an upscale neighborhood in the Mexican capital where several other fashion agencies are also located. Although several people believe that the agency is involved in some way in what happened to Stephanie, Mexican authorities have said that there is no indication that the company is part of any criminal organization. Several women of numerous nationalities have contracts with the agency, and they usually carry out model tests in South American countries, such as Colombia and Venezuela. When contacted by the press, the agency's spokesperson stated that the company is very professional and prestigious and that they are not linked to any human trafficking network. Stephanie's neighbors stated that the woman had arrived at her apartment in a car with two men who were accompanying her. Neighbors also said that these two men spent some time with Stephanie in her apartment before leaving the place. To this day, it is not known who these men are, at least not publicly, because if the police identified them, they did not disclose this to the public. Therefore, we do not know whether they were interrogated or investigated. As I said previously, the official version given by the Mexican authorities is that Stephanie threw herself from the roof of the building where her apartment was located. However, some details caught the attention of many people who said that the official version makes no sense. One of these details is that Stephanie's body appeared in the middle of the street more than 12 meters away from the building in which she lived. According to Dr. Jorge Quinones, a specialist in sports medicine and muscular physiology, said that the jump that Stephanie supposedly made was almost impossible to do from the roof of the building in which she lived. He said that she would have to run at least 45 meters to be able to fall that distance, and the size of the building's roof does not have enough space for her to run so many meters and jump so little. If she had actually jumped from the building, her body would have landed on the sidewalk and not in the middle of the street. Furthermore, she was in the fetal position, a position that a person is very unlikely to be in after jumping from the 5th floor of a building. Generally, people who jump from a certain height fall face down, with their arms half extended or in front of their face due to the natural instinct to protect one of the most sensitive parts of the body, which is the head. When asked about this, Mexican authorities said that it was all due to the fact that Stephanie bumped into a tree in front of the building during her fall. In front of the building there is indeed a tree, as well as several electricity cables that are very close to this tree. And the strangest thing is that both the tree branches and the cables were intact, which was not supposed to be if Stephanie actually bumped into that tree. A neighbor who lives in a house next to the building said that if Stephanie had actually jumped, she would have bumped into tree branches or electricity cables from nearby poles. However, that didn't happen. It was as if she had dodged everything, something that is practically impossible, and in addition, she fell far in front of the building, right in the middle of the street, which is very strange. Another very strange thing was the fact that the police requested images from security cameras from neighboring houses, which certainly captured the moment Stephanie appeared on the street. These images would be crucial in helping to solve the case, but for some reason, the police said they only collected the images, but did not review them because they were almost certain that Stephanie had jumped from their building. They did not see the need to analyze them. And we shouldn't forget Stephanie's teeth. Several of them were missing from her mouth, but none were found either on the street or in her apartment. According to a news source, during a live broadcast of a program called Four Paths, a member of a drug cartel allegedly called into the program anonymously and made a disturbing statement. According to him, there are several modeling agencies that are financed by the cartel, and through them, they choose the most beautiful women to propose work as models, and when they arrive in Mexico City, they are forced to have relationships with their bosses, of the cartels and other members. According to him, if any of these girls resisted or denied, they would be eliminated. He also said that no one would try to discover the truth, and if there were any investigation, the evidence would be covered up, as the cartel had already bought the entire law firm and the judicial police. This information would also have been confirmed by another member of the cartel, who said that everything was real and even added that they gave preference to Colombian women, as they are tall, have the most beautiful body and light hair and eyes. Later, information came out that the Colonia Naples neighborhood in Mexico City, where Stephanie's apartment is located, was known for hosting foreign women who are sex workers. In April 2018, in that same neighborhood, Mexican authorities discovered a women trafficking network to force them to work. At the time, 17 women were released, 10 Venezuelans, 6 Colombians, and 1 Paraguayan. Unfortunately, in Mexico, cases of trafficking in foreign women and also the femicides associated with this are increasingly common and cause concern throughout the country. The lack of commitment on the part of authorities to dismantle these networks and solve these crimes further increases the concern. According to the Colombian press, Stephanie's husband, Anthony Marin, stated that he last saw his wife via video call looking shaken. According to him, Stephanie was distant and strange the last time they spoke, but he didn't consider it worrying as he thought it was tiredness from work. Jonathan Leal, a photographer who worked with Stephanie for a few months before she went to live in Mexico, said that she had a desire to progress, worked hard, and was almost always accompanied by her husband. He took her and picked her up from all the photo shoots, and they were very close. Stephanie's family, especially her husband and son, were devastated by what happened to her. The family fought hard to have the case reopened, but the request was denied every time. The victim's mother was very shaken by the whole situation and had to be admitted to a hospital to treat her mental health. This wasn't the first time she had lost a child. In August 2014, Julian David Ramirez, Magali's youngest son, was involved in a bar fight in Brazil and his life was taken. At the time, he went to Brazil to work, to try for a better life, just like his sister. Stephanie's body was handed over to the Colombian authorities and her funeral took place at noon on August 7. The farewell ceremony was attended by hundreds of people, including family and friends who were very angry and sad. For the moment, for the Mexican authorities, this case is closed, as according to them, everything indicates that Stephanie threw herself from her building and there is nothing left to investigate. However, for Stephanie's family and also for many people, there is still much more to be investigated. Well guys, that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching me to the end. Best wishes and I see you next time.